Okay, so today is something that, it's something I've been thinking about for a long time, but it really didn't kind of hit me until yesterday. I made a post talking about what we were doing for our family tradition for the weekend. And on, Saturdays, we usually watch, older 80s movies. And then Sunday, we do the Disney movie 8 o'clock, just like they used to do in the 80s and 90s. We find an old classic live action Disney movie and we watch it. And as I made that post and I was talking about it, one, I watched some Fox titles for the 80s movie day. The second one has never been put out on Blu-ray, and I only have it in this 2-pack DVD. But then the other thing is the Disney movie that we picked. I was informed that they didn't have a release in the UK, and so when I went to look, we only got a DVD, and then Canada got a DVD, and then those are also out of print. They're hard to find, and if you're trying to get them now, they might be on the more pricier side. And so that got me thinking, like, what else does Disney own separate from the ones that we always talk about, like Touchstone and that. So I was like, if they had the ability to put out all these films on all these studios in a feasible way, like obviously this stuff costs a lot of money, but they don't, or else they would, because there's so much money that's just being left on the table. Specifically this is one that comes up all the time, and it's a Touchstone film, and most people know that Disney owns Touchstone, but they also closed up shop. Like, it's considered a defunct company, even though they own the titles, and then Disney can do whatever they want with them, but they're not putting anything out new from Touchstone. And this one here, 13th Warrior, every time we talk about films that we want to get on Blu-ray, this one comes up probably the most. This one and Strange Days, which is a Fox title, and so it's another one that may or may not come anytime soon. But this is something that I think there's a DVD. I only have the VHS, but trying to get this on Blu-ray, a lot of people want one, and it's a good film. It's definitely worth, people want it, so it's just leaving money on the table. But then I started looking into it. So I was like, obviously we know they own Pixar, they own Marvel Studios, they own 20th Century Fox now, which, tons of great films in this pile alone. But then they own Searchlight Pictures, which was a Fox subsidiary, and then that one gave you stuff like Slumdog Millionaire, movies like that. But then you have the Walt Disney Animation Studios, Blue Sky, which was the Fox Animation Studios, which gave us Ice Age. But then you have Disney Toon Studios. But then you also have these defunct ones. Touchstone Pictures, Hollywood Pictures, which, that's going to give you The Sixth Sense, The Rock. And recently somebody was putting out The Sixth Sense on 4K. So it's like, not like these titles are not getting releases, but there's just so many under one umbrella. Tons of great ones are getting missed. Buena Vista International. Then you have the Walt Disney Feature Animation, Disney Animation Japan, and then there's some other ones. So these are just like the main ones that I could find. And so like I'm going through this list, and this one here, Hollywood Pictures Home Video, Son-in-Law. This is a classic film that every time Thanksgiving comes around, people talk about this because it's clearly a Thanksgiving film. But it's something that people want, and to have this on Blu-ray would be great. I'm not even sure if this movie's available on streaming, but it's definitely something that I know I would buy it day one. I have this VHS because I was like, I don't even know if there's a DVD, but if there is, it's kind of harder to find because this is all I've ever had. And then you have like movies like this. So this is a classic film. I've been trying to get this for the longest time. It's out of print. It's extremely overpriced. It had a Blu-ray. But now that Disney owns the property, are we ever going to get a Blu-ray again? And another one, I was like, I don't do the streaming services here, so I'd like sit down and look up every single film. I don't know if this one has a streaming option. It probably does. But then again, do you have that streaming option? Because there's so many different streaming companies, and sometimes the movie's on one, and then it gets sent to another one. So it's like, the reality is, unless you have all the streaming options, you may or may not be able to watch this film, even if it is available. But License to Drive, one of my favorites, and this is something that I have it on the VHS. There was a DVD, there was a Blu-ray, but like I said, that Blu-ray is long out of print, and on average, you can find that Blu-ray for about $100. Now, recently, I found it for about $60-something, and it's one of those things, I've wanted it for so long, like that's probably the cheapest I've ever seen it. So this is a movie that tons of people would love to have put out on Blu-ray again, or even a 4K upgrade would be great. But having this on VHS is the only way I've been able to enjoy this for many years. Now, let's see, this one right here, this is another one. So these two here, they're Blu-rays of this movie. Now, this is something that I like it. I did the rewatch on it, and it could use a 4K or a new scan, a new Blu-ray with a new technology, and gone in 60 seconds. This is one of the earlier Blu-rays. It has the silver, which indicates that it's one of the first using the older technology. Now, some of those Blu-rays did look pretty good, but this one here, there's some room for improvement, and a nice new upgrade on a Blu-ray or even a 4K would be great. But this movie here is a Fox movie that I'm glad that I found this way back when. It's one of my all-time favorites. I saw this when I was a kid, and so I have those definitely nostalgia memories, but it's also, I'm a sucker for heist films, and the entire movie is a heist film, but it also has Audrey Hepburn, and I love her. She's probably one of my favorite actresses. And so this one here, it's a Fox movie, but it was only put out by Twilight Time, which is now defunct, and we're talking about How to Steal a Million. So this is a great movie, I think. But this one right here, has been sold for $100, $80. Like, that's usually the price. But then right now on eBay, there's listings for $150, $200, $135. The prices are pretty much all over the place. But sold listings just a month ago were about $100. So people are spending a ton of money on this film. And it's not everybody. Like, there's definitely people that buy things because they're expensive, and I kind of understand that. But then there's people that just have to have it, or there's like completionists that are trying to collect all the Twilight Time films. So there's those things to take into account. Not everybody's going to spend that kind of crazy money on this film. And as much as I love this one, I'm so glad that I bought this years ago when Twilight Time was still in business, because I got this for, which I thought was kind of expensive back then, but it was their normal price. Now, to think about spending $150, $200 on this movie, absolutely not. Like, I would be happy finding the DVD or the VHS and just hoping that a Blu-ray comes at some point. So it's like, this conversation of these movies are stuck on a different format, or like this is completely out of print, and Fox is never going to put this out. Disney's probably never going to put that out. The only hope we have is somebody like Kino Lorber or one of these other companies picks up the slack. But then you have that conversation of Sony doing this deal recently with Disney where they're going to handle the distribution for, from what I understand, the deal includes all of the titles. So you got Fox, Touchstone, Hollywood Video, like all of the things that Disney owns. From what I understand, Sony's going to be distributing those. But that happened about a year ago. We haven't seen much from that. And so, like, what's coming? We have no idea. They haven't told us. How long is this deal for? They also haven't told us. And if Disney can't handle all of these titles by themselves, Sony not only has to do all of these titles now, and they have to handle it, but then they also are handling their own. They have their Sony Pictures, they got Columbia, they got all the subsidiaries that they own, and then they're committing to continually put out what they were putting out before. Like, that was the statement that they put out, that production of what they had been putting out through their own companies wasn't going to change, or, you know, it was going to basically stay the same, and then they were going to add that on workload. So it's like, I would assume that if they're going to commit to producing the same amount of movies every single year that they have been, that then all the Disney Fox stuff and Touchstone stuff and all that stuff that Disney owns, it's not going to be nearly as much as they've been putting out with their Fox titles or their Sony titles. But then something like these, let's see. This one here, Low Down Dirty Shame, one of my favorite movies. Hollywood Pictures put this out, and yeah, this is something that I love the film. It's great. It's, you know, just classic 90s. But this is stuck on, I'm pretty sure, DVD. I'm sure there's a DVD of this. But this is just, for me, you know, I remember renting this back in the 90s. So there's tons of nostalgia, but I absolutely love this. And I've talked about this before. Like, this is probably the first film I ever saw Jada Pinkett in. And, you know, just that sassy little Jada Pinkett. I was like, I was a teenage boy when I saw this. So I was like, it kind of worked for me. Big fan, but I love this film. High recommend. But I don't even know if you can stream this movie. So then the conversation leads into these. These are all Fox Blu-rays. But then they're older ones. Now they're out of print. Now some of them were put out by Fox, but some of them were put out by other smaller labels, and they're all out of print, but most of them are pretty much extremely expensive, except for, I don't know about this one. I know it's out of print. Fantastic Four. This could use a 4K, but just the fact that if anybody wants to grab this, it's harder to find now. I was like, I've had it for a while, but I was like, when I checked on it, I don't remember the price, what it was, but I know that it was harder to find, and everything I was able to find was just used, so it indicates that it's out of print. But then this movie here, I picked it up. It was $22, which was not a bad deal. But the thing is, this movie, Something About Mary, this is something that, it's a Fox title. I could see this one in a year or so going for crazy money. And so I was like, I had to grab it. This was brand new. I know there's a couple listings right now for pretty decent, cheap prices. But the fact that it is out of print, who knows if we're ever going to get another copy, if a 4K is coming at any point. But another Fox title that I know that people like it. And not everybody's going to like this film. But this is something that I had to have it. And so the $22, I had no problem paying for it. But then these movies, if I didn't have this, well, this one I did. This was a $35 title. Now, I pulled this trigger because I've wanted it for years. The Newton Boys. Love this film. I think it's classic. But $35 was pretty much like, that's my cap. Like, I don't want to spend any more than that. And even then, it was kind of frustrating. I've been looking at this Blu-ray for about a year before I finally pulled the trigger, because I think the price is a little silly. And then the fact that it's a Fox title, this was put out by Anchor Bay. Who knows if we're ever going to get one again. Like I said, I don't do the streaming service, so I'm not even sure if this is on streaming. But then to try to find this, I have not been able to find one. And I would have been happy with a VHS or a DVD. So I was like, I had to get it online. I finally pulled the trigger at $35 because I didn't want to spend 40, 50, 60, 100. At that point, I would be out. And then it's a movie that I enjoy that I would not have because those prices are crazy. But then these ones here, both of them, this one was put out by Olive Films, which is defunct. And this is also put out by Olive Films, which is defunct. I don't think there was ever another Blu-ray on some of these. Now, there might have been some in other countries, but here in America, no Blu-ray. And even the one I saw, I think Zapped had one in another country, but it was also kind of expensive. I think it was like $64 before you pay shipping and tax. But anyway, Zapped, it's just a great classic Fox title. I love this movie, but this Blu-ray, completely out of print. I mean, I'm sure you can find the DVD pretty cheap, but this is something that, it's a high recommend, but the prices on here, $100 sold listings. And so it's another one. I'm glad I got this early on day one, because $100, I just wouldn't have it in the collection. And, being able to revisit this, I watch that movie at least once a year. And yeah, it's frustrating. This is another one. What's the worst that could happen? I love this film. It's another Fox title, so another reason, Disney umbrella, but this was put out by Olive Films, and so this one wasn't even put out by Fox. So another one, you don't have another Blu-ray, another option, and I think this is just a classic fun comedy. And now this one here, this is another one that had the more expensive price tag. If I didn't already have it in the collection, this would have to be a VHS or a DVD. So the very frustrating thing of these movies just being stuck on these older formats, but also under this Disney umbrella, these movies here. Now again, more Fox titles. Fox didn't even put these out. So this one had a DVD, Johnny Dangerously. Love this movie, but the DVD now is out of print, and I thought that it was kind of on the expensive side. So glad to have this, but a Blu-ray would be 100% day one of my all-time favorites. And it's like, it's not really slapstick, but it kind of is. So yeah, Michael Keaton, I love this film. I think it's great. But yeah, it's again another one I watched when I was a boy. You got the nostalgia thing going for me. But then I chuckle every time I watch this movie. I think it's great. But then you have this movie, Kiss of Death. I don't think anybody's really ever heard of it, but I love it. And at the time when it came out, somebody had said the best crime movie since Scorsese's Goodfellas. Now, that could be argued. It's like, I don't know. I think I like Goodfellas more. But this is a great film, and it's stuck on, an older format. And so it doesn't have a Blu-ray. I don't know if it's streaming. And again, it's under that Disney umbrella. Who knows if you're ever going to have this. And then this one comes up all the time. Like 13th Warrior and this one are the ones that come up the most for movies that people would love to have on a better format. Like this one comes up all the time. People want this on a Criterion, and it's a great film. So anyway, it's Strange Days, by the way. But then this one, Modern Problems, I love this. I finally had to track down this VHS because I've been wanting to watch it for a few years now, and it was probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And I think Well, you know what? Maybe, because like we cut off cable in 2016, and I think that might have been when I saw it. I probably saw this originally on cable at some point, and then that's it. That's it. And then so I haven't seen it since. I had to track this down. This would be a great day one purchase for me because I love the film. But the fact that, it just boils down to Disney owns all this stuff. They don't have the ability to put it out. They kind of got out of the physical media game. They're pawning off all of their physical media distribution to another company who also has a big workload. And a lot of these titles would be great under some of the smaller boutique labels like Umbrella and Imprint and Kino Lorber and Shout Factory. And I was like, at the end of the day, there's like some kind of deal worked out between Sony, and so there's a big payday and there's a big payout. There's benefits for those companies, but the benefits don't seem to be trickling down to us because that deal happened a year ago, and I was like, I'm not even sure what we've really gotten out of that deal. Recently, we got Willow, which is great. That's another thing. Lucasfilm, they own all the Lucasfilm stuff. So Radioland Murders, I'm pretty sure, was a Lucasfilm title. There's that one. About the car. Anyway, there's plenty of Lucasfilm titles that still have never been put out on Blu-ray. Disney isn't the only culprit and the only problem, but it is this consolidation where these big companies are swallowing up everything, they're owning everything, and in the beginning, you're sold how great it's going to be. Like I remember when Disney was going to buy Fox, how everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to be able to get the X-Men into the MCU. And I was like, that's all that I could ever hear. And I'm like, that's not good. I don't think it's good. Like anytime that all these companies have owned everything, it has never been good. Let me know what you think about all this. Merch link is always down below. You can always join the memberships. We have membership here on YouTube and on the Fourth Wall store site. Check out this video right here for more movie reviews. And with that, remember to watch a movie today, and I'll catch you guys next time.